I don't know if you can tell, but there's a lot of Mexican vibes here. Last week, we took 4 back-to-back flights to get here to Mexico City. In this video, we'll tell you why.
We were in Bolivia last week, and by the way, Bolivia is insanely beautiful.
It's one of the best nature we have seen in any country we have been to until now. We got a chance to fly the drone finally. There was no coronavirus cases in Bolivia when we were there, but we were monitoring the situation everywhere else in the world. It had just arrived in Latin America. It just started to spread in Latin America, and some Latin American countries had started to take it seriously and started looking into the situation.
So our plan was to stay in Bolivia till the end of March. Then we planned to head to Peru and explore Peru for 2 to 3 months. And then after that we had no plans because we usually don't plan ahead more than 1 or 2 months. On Thursday afternoon we got to know from one of our friends who has connections in the airline industries that Latin American airlines will either ground most of their airlines or cancel several flights, which will make flights really expensive. So suddenly we had to decide what to do and where to go.
We were planning to stay in La Paz for a couple of weeks before heading back to Peru, but the situation was changing so rapidly, it didn't seem to be a good idea anymore. We had one of our suitcases in Cusco, Peru with our friend. We didn't want to carry everything we have to Bolivia, so we kept one with our friend in Cusco. So we had to go there to pick up our suitcase before leaving South America. Since our Bolivian visa was about to end by the end of March, and we didn't have any other visa in South America, we had to take a call on either continuing staying in South America or leave to stay put somewhere else until the situation improves.
And another thing about staying in South American countries or staying anywhere for that matter, when your visa expires, you have to get in touch with the embassy, and it's a huge long process, and we were hoping it would not have to come to that.
Bolivia doesn't have an Indian embassy.
Yeah.
Only Peru has one.
Only Peru has one. So we had a couple of choices. One was to fly to India. The second was to fly to the US, and the third was to fly to Mexico. Flying to India right now would mean we would have to take 5 to 6 flights back to back, and we would have had to fly through a couple of COVID-19 hotspots. Flying to India right now meant we would have had to take 5 to 6 flights. We would have had to fly through quite a few of the COVID-19 hotspots, and that was just not a good idea right now. Also, Indian citizens are supposed to undergo quarantine. Also, India had already closed borders for anyone coming from Europe, and the citizens coming from anywhere have to go through quarantine.
Also, we didn't want to go back home to our parents who are more susceptible to coronavirus than we are after traveling like 5 or 6 flights.
Yeah.
So we were left with US or Mexico. Both the countries gives us 6 months visa, so we can stay put for a while. We had made a lot of friends in Mexico the last time we were here, and of course we have family in the US, so if we need support, then we had support in these places. Another criteria we were considering back then was the cost. Living in the US is of course very expensive, and also the healthcare in the US is very expensive, which was an important thing to consider.
Yeah, like just in the chance situation that we can access that healthcare,
yeah,
it's very expensive.
Of course, we have travel insurance, but the insurance companies have restrictions when it comes to coronavirus or COVID-19 treatment.
The US already had imposed quite a few border restrictions, and they were considering imposing more. We didn't know what is Mexico's stance. According to the news we read, we didn't see Mexico doing any travel restrictions, so our best bet was actually Mexico. So we decided to book flight tickets to Mexico. When we were checking flights, we were just about to book one LATAM flight from Lima to Mexico City, and while we were just about to go through with the booking, the flight prices jumped from 15,000 rupees to 1,50,000 rupees, like just in a few seconds before we were about to confirm our booking.
So our hunch was right. It was already happening by the time by in 3 hours the flight prices started to increase.
Yeah. Finally, we ended up booking our flights. We had to go from La Paz to Cusco, Cusco to Lima, Lima to Panama City, Panama City to Mexico City. 4 flights. Oh my god, every time someone coughed on the plane, we like jumped in the air.
We landed in Mexico City on Saturday afternoon after around 1.5 days of travel. We had no issues getting into Mexico. They immediately stamped us in for 6 months. The scene in Mexico City was way different from anywhere else. Peru was in lockdown. The moment we left Peru decided to completely close their borders. There were many temperature checks in almost all the airports we came through until we came to Mexico City, where there was no checks at all. There was a general sense of panic everywhere, but in Mexico it seemed very different.
Like all the coffee shops, cafes, everything was full. There's people out and about.
All
and
the public transportation was still running.
Yeah, the kids from in schools and colleges, they have Easter holidays which have been extended to an extra 2 weeks, but nothing seems to have shut down, or there is no like government imposed quarantine as of now. We had temporarily booked an Airbnb for 2 days for when we landed in Mexico City, but once we were sure we were going to be here for a while, we made sure we booked this apartment for 2 months. It's a very nice, cozy place, and
with nice art on the walls.
Yeah.
There's more art inside.
Yeah. The first priority for us when we landed was to isolate ourselves for 14 days to see if we showed any symptoms, because we had taken 4 flights.
Yeah.
So we stocked up on supplies reasonably, of course. We got the important stuff, Mexican salsas, as soon as we landed.
Tortillas. We can't eat taco outside, but we can make one.
Yes. We are of the mindset that we are going to look at this as the glass half full. Even though it's forced, it is nice to be able to slow down for a while and stay put. We haven't stayed in a single city for more than 2 months for a long time now in South America. We
have been hopping from one city to the other in South America like continuously, or taking small trips from the city where we are for little hikes and stuff like that.
So it's nice to be able to slow down and focus on ourselves. We have a couple of projects that we want to work on.
Yes, we have a lot of backlog videos which we want to edit and publish. Most importantly, we want to work on the podcast we promised in our last video.
Yes. Which was in January.
We've been trying to get podcasting equipment in South America, but we were not able to get them. So the second thing we did once we landed in Mexico City after we bought the Mexican salsas was to go buy the podcast equipment. Maybe we'll show the equipment soon in an upcoming video. So we can finally work on the podcast.
And hopefully you can expect the first podcast episode super soon. Also, I'm going to learn how to cut this guy's hair from a YouTube video, because
of social isolation and distancing, I'm very afraid to go to a salon here, especially after seeing how Mexico is reacting to this situation.
Yeah. Let us know what kind of videos you want to see from us in the coming weeks. Do you want to see the haircut video? If you have any funny coronavirus stories, please share them in the comments below. Take care of yourselves and one another. Make sure to wash your hands. Subscribe to this channel, and we'll see you in the next one.